Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to DC Universe Online, kind of editorial, optional discussion, video-ish type of thing. I'm, of course, Trex, and I'm sitting here because I didn't want to feel like standing this time, so I'm actually sitting here, and I'm here to give you guys some updates on what's going on Game Update 47 that's on the PC test server right now. So, we've had an entire weekend of forums blowing up with a lot of tinfoil hatness needing to be worn. It was crazy. And also, it was shocking to the fact that people expected to hear from the devs on the weekends. You might, I mean, we saw MEPs a little bit, but at the same time, it's the weekend. I mean, they got people that are actually watching the servers and everything, but come on, guys. I mean, give the devs a weekend here. That's the whole point of releasing tests this weekend. It was so everyone can have time to play the content, test it, and see the apparently millions and millions of opinions on the forums, and then come in Monday office like, all right, well, time to go ahead and set the whole place on fire. Let's go ahead and burn this bitch down. So now it's Tuesday as I'm recording this, and Tunso was able to come onto Mark Halash was able to come onto or Mark Halesh. I can't remember. I'm just gonna call him Tunso. Tunso was able to come onto the forums and give us a little insight on the changes on really what Game Update 47, the NPC combat difficulty scaling was supposed to be, and what we're also going to be looking at as well. So I have it right here on my handy dandy paper. So based on the very clear feedback you have given us, we'll be extending the CR differential combat adjustment in both directions. In human speak, I like that. That means when your CR climbs above the CR of the NPCs you are fighting, you will take less damage and inflict more damage. So, meaning that I have a CR of 115, and I'm going up against an enemy that has a CR 80, I'm doing more damage, okay? I'm taking less damage, and I'm going to be doing more damage. That's basically where people are coming with the solo content, okay? So, specifically, when you are 2 full tiers higher than the NPCs you are fighting, most should be able to solo multiplayer content. So, for example, by the time your CR is in mid-50s range, most should be able to solo Ace Chemicals, Tier 1 Alert. When your CR is in the 70s, most will be able to start soloing the raid versions of Batcave, a Tier 2 raid. When your CR is in the 80s, you'll most likely be able to take the CC bounties without much trouble. Now, obviously, some will be able to solo easier these earlier than this, but the ideal is that most will be able to take on multiplayer content at the +2 tier range. Now keep in mind, there still may be specific issues with specific pieces of content that will continue to fix as we find them and or you report them. Such issues could make completing the content more difficult than intended, both for proper groups and at the current CR or for over CR folks trying to solo them. So please continue to keep that in mind and let us know about anything that continues to feel off. We look forward to your continued feedback. So what we are looking at, and if you want the example, here's the example that he further gave. All right, to clarify this, for those tiers where the NPCs have a CR that is unusually high, we've compensated for that. All right, they've compensated. So you're going in at, say, CR 70 and fighting against a CR 92 CR 92 enemies. We're spotting you 12 levels of CR. So it's really like being CR 82 or so. And then when you are CR 80, it is as if you are CR 92 or completely even with those NPCs. So what they've done is, on a stat base, I'll actually go into that in just a little bit. But with this CR content, with how we're going to look, like we'll take the Outer Caverns, for example, a Tier 2 raid. Basically, I think that, I can't actually remember what CR you have to be for those. Maybe like 43. I think you have to be like 43, or we're going to say 50 to make it an even number. With the CR 50, if the enemies in there are CR 50, and I'd rather use his example because he already did the math for me. As an example, alright, you go into a raid, and you are CR 70. Your CR 70 going into this raid, going up against enemies that are 92. On the back end, on their side, they are giving you an extra 12 levels of CR. So your character is going to say 70, but you're going to feel like an 82. Alright? Going up against those 92 enemies. So, and the same goes with there. If you are a CR 80 going up against these 92 enemies, they're going to give you that 12, and it's going to feel like you're at an even level with them. So that's basically what they've done. They are giving you lobby guys an extra little bit of CR to help you push through your content, and also same what was it? Can't remember now. They're going back and forth with this where I'm going to go back to the tier content. So what we're looking at here is pretty. Everybody wants to do a death mic. That's basically where everybody wants to go with. They want to go back and solo their content. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's just the grandeur of like saying that they did it. I guess I don't know. Maybe they're looking for a style. I don't know. But that's a whole different conversation. But you're going into this as a high level. You're wanting to go back in there. Instead of just making this flat damage like you've seen in the Outer Cavern videos that I've done and the others that are out there, they are adjusting this a bit. Okay, they're adjusting this pretty well. Where now, if you are a tier 3 person, if you're in tier 3, you can go and solo tier 1 content. If you're tier 4, you can go back in tier 2. It's going back to that tier, going back down to 2 levels. As long as your CR is as long as you are 2 tiers higher than the content that you're running, you should be able to solo it. Now, there are like the small stuff that reason why you can't do it. Most of it might be stats. There might be it might be gear. It might be skill. It might be your loadout. It's different variables that will choose, but you should be able to solo them. Okay, you should. So, and of course, Tunso is on the forums, and these are all posts that you can find in the links below to go and give a little shout out to this. But what we have on the test server right now, as I'm recording this, is not this. What we have is basically that CR, that stat flattening that everyone apparently hates, and it's not stat clamping. Calm down. So, this what Tunso has given to us today is not that. That's not on test just yet. I don't know when it's going to happen. Test server had a hot fix come in, fixing a bunch of bugs, but it's not actually introducing this yet. So all he has right here is on paper. We can't really do anything until we go on test. Now, let's talk a little bit about... Oop, I dropped paper. This is why I need a clipboard. I need to buy a clipboard. So let me talk about where he is talking here where, for those tiers where the NPCs have a CR that is unusually high. Take Arkham Asylum, for example. Arkham Asylum is a tier 3 alert, but those enemies in there are a CR 80. Those actually are a lot higher than what you're than what's. A lot of us actually feel that that's probably a little too high. So it's probably not going to get scaled down. But even we're just like Arkham Asylum, it's a little too high of a CR of these enemies. But we'll have to see with more testing. There are going to be circumstances where some enemies are actually not tuned properly, because I mean you can't get out everything. You can't get everything. Some of them might squeak by, but that's where us and the testers, this is becoming a very important update for the fact that the testers, we have to test every bit of content. Every bit of content to give. I mean, the War of the Light part, or Halls of Power Part 2 is on the test server. That, of course, needs to be tested as well. But with Game Update 47, we have to go through all the old content. And really, I recommend just probably going with a group. Going with a nice solid group for your alerts. The raids might be a little bit of an issue because trying to find 8 people or 7 other folks on the test server is actually a nightmare because everybody wants to run the other doesn't want to do that kind of testing. They will actually want to go do other stuff. I don't know. But we have to go through all that pieces of content to find those bosses, to find those fights. It's like, and go back to the devs like, look, we feel that this needs to be looked at. If you can look at this for us, this is what we experienced. And as an example, when I went into FOS 3 on one of my streams, I'm sorry, no, it wasn't on a stream, it was actually earlier. Went into FOS 3 and I was with myself. It was actually 2 DPS. Was it 2 DPS? No, it was actually Arkham Asylum when we had 2 DPS and a healer, and we did a total of 9 million damage. A total of 3 of us, 2 DPS and a healer. Total of $9 million to clear, or $9 million damage to clear that entire alert. And it was only a 3-person. Think of it as a 4. We might have actually went over 9 probably. Or at least stuff would have actually probably fallen a lot faster, maybe less damage. But that's with the stat flattening. The stat flattening is what we're also looking at is for people who are lower than that CR, you are basically going to get a little bit of a boost. You get that 12 level difference there. For people that are higher CR, we are actually taking and doing damage by stats. All right? So look at it this way. If that CR 115 going up against a CR 80, I'm of course going to do more damage. I'm doing more damage. But at the same time, the damage being done to me and the damage I'm doing, that's all being based on my stats. On the stats that I am wearing. And that also goes, I think that actually goes for a lower level. No, I'm sorry. Lower level, we're basically breezing through it. We're doing more damage, taking less damage, right? That's lower level. At content, and, well, yeah, at content, you're basically doing everything by your stats. All the damage that you're doing, all the damage that you're taking in, that's all represented by the stats that you are wearing. That you have on your gear, on your person, with all your skills and everything. Anything higher, if you're fighting an enemy higher than your CR, then yeah, you're actually going to do less damage and you're going to take more damage. Like a good thing you're supposed to do. So, this is basically how it looks like. If it's lower than your CR, you'll do more damage and you'll take less damage. If you're at your CR, you're going to do all the damage based on your stats. And then if you're going to be if you're fighting something higher than your CR, you're going to do less damage and take more damage. Now you would think that this should have been in already, but it wasn't because of how over-fluctuated the stats were compared to the different tiers. I mean, it was getting astronomically crazy. But now with the stat flattening and the NPC combat difficulty scaling, we're bringing everything more in line to make it an easier transition, especially going from tier to tier. Okay, it's so you're not actually going into you're at level. It's like, oh, I'm just doing this busted ass damage, and all of a sudden you go to your next tier content, you're going to get mowed over. You don't need that. But so just keep it in mind that this is how it's going. And honestly, even with Game Update 47 changes beforehand, I was okay with it. For me, I didn't look at one-shotting bosses. I didn't see that as fun, especially when I'm running with lobies. I didn't see the fun in that. And when I had to run an instance and I was testing it with a lobby person, actually I think I was a lobby person, and we were running some stuff on test, it's like, well look, as a higher CR, I'm chipping in. I'm doing what I need to do. There's no one-shot in anything. I'm doing more damage, and the CR is doing damage as well. Now, there's also questionable forms as well about this. That what happens if I'm a CR 50 and I'm running with someone that's a CR 115? Where's the damage? Where's the difficulty going to be scaled? Well, that's the cool thing. It's actually, let's say we're fighting enemy A. All right, player A has the 50 CR, and player B has the CR 115, and enemy A is just standing there. The damage that enemy A is going to do to player A will depend on player A's CR. It will depend on that CR, just like when I'm fighting it and it wants to hit me, it's going to face me depending on my CR. So each enemy will actually divvy up. It will understand what kind of damage it needs to do to what number of CR. So each enemy is going to be doing damage based on your CR. It doesn't matter if you have a high person or a low person in the same instance. It's not going to matter. Each person is going to take their lickings at the right number. So So if you want to try and carry someone, sure, try and carry someone. It's not really going to work very well because they're just going to do the same thing. But it's going to make sure that the lobies, that the people who are in lower content than yourself, are going to chip in and do the job. And the people that are overgeared are going to do more damage. They're going to do more to the enemy, but they're not just going to one-shot. They're not just going to go over and fluctuate. All right, you have to put in the work, and that's what I want in every single instance. I don't want one-shots. It makes it irrelevant content. And that's the thing. Everyone on the forums is going off about this, like, well, you just destroyed my content. I have nothing to play now. What am I going to run now? You just ruined this. It's well, at the same time, you're CR 111. You're CR 114 now. That content is basically already irrelevant to you anyways. No, but I still get marks, Trex. I always want to run stuff so I can get marks. Well, that's not really going to matter anymore, is it? Because you don't get marks from it, and you shouldn't get marks from it. It's content that you can one-shot. If you want an easy route, you don't play MMOs for an easy route. That's not we don't do easy. We evolve. We go further forward. We don't go backwards. If you want to run stuff in the past, then you run it for fun. You run it for feats that you miss. You run it for styles that you miss, and that's it. You don't progress with back-end content. Progress means forward. You go forward. You don't progress backwards. That sounds really weird just saying it out loud, actually. That does sound weird. But that's what you have to do. You have to progress forward. You go forward, so the lower level content you can still run. And everyone complaining that you guys are, that the devs have ruined this, that 4 years of work is out the window, that content is, I get nothing from it, it's all gone now. The content's still there. The devs aren't getting rid of it. The devs, no, they're not getting rid of it. You still have access to run, you can still run it. You can still queue in and run it if you want. That's up to you. The only person who's putting this restriction on is yourself. It does mean that you're going to have to manage probably your time a little more, but MMOs are really a time sink. You have to dedicate some time to it. So you can either run the old content for styles and feats that you probably missed, or helping one of your buddies out, or helping just a friendly lobby, or you can go run your content and it's going to work. Now that also segues into another thing that I want to talk about. It's the 12 relevant pieces of content. All right. Now there's a thread on the forums on the Gotham City that I replied to, and it was basically trying to look at Word of the Light Part 2 and Amazon Fury Part 2 in this 12 pieces of content scheme. You can't really, you think you have an imagination on it, and it looks kind of right, but it's really not. And the reason that it's not is because it's not set up for it. The content-wise is not set up. And this is what I mean. In those two episodes, all right, those are going to be banded by the CR. That's just CR banded. Just like how that tier 1 is like 0 to 42, then 43 to 53 or something. Whatever. Those are all stat banded together. With Halls of Power Part 2, this begins the transition of this monthly content of the first 12 pieces of content. Halls of Power Part 2 brings us the first 6. All right? So, and I typed it up really well, and so I'm actually wanting to read it verbatim because it's like I typed it up just for this. That was really awesome. So, look at it this way. Episode 14 brings us our first 6, okay? Then episode 15, which is our first monthly episode. Episode 15 brings 2 more. 16 brings another 2, and then episode 17 ends it out with the last 2, making that 12 pieces of content. So, episodes 14, 15, 16, and 17. That right there is our 12 pieces of content. So, I mean, that's technically 4 months. Actually, no, it's not, because if you count the 6 from episode 14, that's actually 3, so that's your 6 months of content right there. That's 6 months. In 6 months, that's 2 DLCs. That's 2 DLCs. That DLC 14 was going to be there for 3 months. We're going to run those 6 pieces of content, run them in the ground, and then be bored probably by month 3. Hope there's going to be a survival mode, or at least a Legends PvE that you're not going to hate. And then we have to wait for the next DLC, and that's what we get. The next episode, another 6 pieces of content that will last us for 3 months. This This monthly stuff is going to give us 2 pieces of content every month. Keep it, and it's going to keep us relevant. It's going to keep us relevant. So now you're probably asking yourself, well, this is 12 pieces of content. What happens when the next episode comes out? With episode, 18. So this is how I have in theory, all right? This is what I have in theory. In theory, since episode 14 brings us the first 6, the raid and the duo with the lowest CR requirement, which is League Hall Malfunction, and I believe it's the 4-man operation. It's not final exams is the alert. Happiness Home is I think is the raid. Maybe it might be the operation. I can't remember. But it's either the, I know it's the duo League Hall Malfunction. That's the lowest, and I think it's the 8-man operation in episode 14 that is the raid and the duo with the lowest CR. So in theory, with those two with the lowest CR, will not give any marks when episode 18 comes out. When episode 18 comes out, we progress, and we're going to get a new raid and a new duo, and that's going to give us our marks. Where League Hall Malfunction and the raid with the lowest CR is not going to give us marks anymore. That's how it's going to. That's how I think it's going to work in theory. With episode 14 having the 6 pieces of content already out there, we might not actually see a raid and a duo move away. We might not. I mean, episode 15 is going to be our first month with the raid, with our first raid and our first duo. Episode 15 might not be. Will stop being relevant like in the 20s when we start moving forward into the next cycle, where we begin the next quarter with a new raid and a duo, and then that episode is our new one, and episode 15 goes into the back burner. Or, well, it's not back burner, we just don't run it anymore. It won't give marks anymore. That's what I'm saying. It won't give marks anymore. It's still there to run for feats, for anything that drops in there, but it won't be giving marks. Please remember that as well. These things will not be given marks. And honestly, you want to keep asking yourself, and I keep seeing on the forums that people keep complaining about it, and like, okay, well, what do you run it for? You run it for your marks. Cool. Really. I have to ask this, and please, if you want to, leave a comment in the section below. Why run a tier 2 alert? Why run a tier 2 alert for that 4 marks, and you can use those 4 marks to get the in-game content, the in-game tier. You use those 4 marks to help you get that tier 7, Why? Why not just run the in-game content? Because you can't get a group? You easily got a group when you get that lower tier content. Oh, sure. It's with lobies, and you try to actually just go down there and work, but you're up here. You don't need to be down here. You're up here. Run the relevant content to get the gear that's relevant there. You don't run down here to get the relevant content up here. No. And I mean, it needed to be done because the Marks of Triumph that's going on right now is insane. It's in the freaking 15,000s. I can't have that. To me, that's a scary number. I don't want to really work with this. So it's just insane. So the mark equivalency of Marks of Victory had to be done. We need to run that relevant content up here. You want your tier 7 gear? Well, you gotta run tier 7 content. And I'm telling you this now. Remember, this is why symbols were put in, okay? You got your symbols from that episode to get that gear from that episode. Well, you know, symbols weren't really well thought out. No, not thought out, but well received. No one liked it. Well, you don't like the... Okay, well, players are... Well, let's see here. Players are not running... are not running the relevant content to get the gear that they need to play. Alright, so let's see. I want to make sure I got this. If I want the tier 7 gear, I gotta run the tier 7 content. But I don't run the tier 7 content, so... But I still want that tier 7 gear. Well, let's see. You can run the lower level content, get your marks, and boom, you get your tier 7 gear. No, you know, that's not really fair. The devs worked really hard on that tier 7 content, and you really want that tier 7 gear. So, they put symbols in. Alright, well, you gotta collect the symbols from that episode to get that tier 7 gear. Alright, okay, that's cool. Well, we don't like symbols. That's a whole other mark system that we have to run with, that we have to add, that we have to do math, and we don't want that. Okay, fine, fine. Well, in that case then, you're not going to get marks from lower level content. You're only going to get marks from this content that's relevant to you, but instead of just, just the 6 that comes from that episode, that large episode, we'll give you 12 and break it down and make it 2 episodes, 2 large episodes. Well, now we got monthly episodes. All right, we got monthly episodes now, and they're breaking it down a little bit more. I mean, the math is there, folks. You get 6 pieces of content in a large episode. In that large DLCs that we got 6 pieces of content. That's 2 pieces of content per month. Yes, it comes quicker, but you'll most likely get that gear a lot faster, and you don't still have to buy it. You still don't have to. You can skip an episode and go with relevant stuff. I know Brittany herself told us on the podcast that she will not get the alert in duo. She doesn't want it. She wants the raids. So that's month 1 and month 3 for her. She's going to be skipping month 2 a lot. But you can still get this. But yeah, she's going to be getting that. And she can still get her set gear from month 2 in month 3 when it's a vendor set. And she still gets it. She still gets her vendor set. I'm still not seeing the relevance of running older content. I run older content because I still need feats. I'm not there for the marks. The marks are the extra for me. That's for the extra. And yes, it's depending on the player. Depending on the player if they want those marks or not. It really is. Most players do want those marks. But those marks are going to be marks of triumph. I mean, yeah. At this point, marks of triumph, they're really needed because they got that rent run. You got those utilities. You got that rent. You got that rent. But now we don't have rent. Now we really don't need marks. Yeah, we just don't. And I want to stress this. Stay over there. I want to stress this. Until we get episode 15, we are close to it. We will not know what content is going to be relevant for us. Alright, so right now, with Marks of Victory, we got that 106 to now. Oh, Marks of Fear, I'm sorry. Well, when it goes to Marks of Victory. We got that 106 to now. Basically, War of the Light Part 2, Amazon Fury Part 2, and Halls of Power Part 2. I believe War of the Light Part 2 I skipped that DLC. That's what I get. And look at there. I skipped that episode. I'm so sorry. I'm a bad llama. But we won't really, until episode 15 comes, we won't really know where we are. But I can tell you now, 6A and 6B, that's War of the Light. I think that's probably basically War of the Light Part 2 and Amazon Fury Part 2. Those are going to be by themselves. Will we still get content, or will we get Marks of Victory from Amazon Fury Part 2? I actually don't remember. We didn't run anything on test. I don't know. I guess I'll have to run and find out, won't I? But I do know that Marks of Victory are going to be dropping in Halls of Power Part 2, which is our first 6 pieces of content. If Marks of Victory drop in Amazon Fury Part 2, that would be a nice thing. It really would. So we actually have 12 pieces of content at that time to run. And then when episode 15 comes out, the first month, we start scaling back. It's like, all right, well, we're going to cut you off from these two. These two little things are not going to give any Marks of Victory anymore. They're just not. And then, we're going to keep moving forward. We're going to keep moving forward until finally episode 17 comes out, and that's our first full 12 pieces of content with full Marks of Victory. That's 12. That's 2 large DLCs again. 2 large DLCs that we're going to have Marks of Victory for. Basically what we already have to begin with. Because, I think Marks of Fury was basically Amazon Fury Part 2. Yeah. And it was Amazon Fury Part 1 when we got First Fury. And then it just caved in to Halls of Power Part 1, War of the Light Part 2, and Amazon Fury Part 2. That's your whole Mark of Fury right there. And then each individual one was broken up by symbols. Well, we don't want symbols anymore. Well, okay, then And at the same time, marks of triumph, no one's really using marks of triumph anymore besides their rent. And since rent's gone, we've just nixed that out. And now you get basically a 55 a month. Or I'm sorry, 55 every 2 months. I'm still not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it. I see good things here. This is progressing forward. Progressing forward. This is where we need to go. Right here. So, but please, keep talking on the forums. Just, be gentle. And just keep giving feedback for the devs as well. If you guys are on test, be sure to give out test. I know you guys want to play Halls of Power Part 2. You guys are having a blast with it. I'm having a blast with it. It is so much fun. Love the mechanics. Love the mechanics. Okay, actually, fail exams is really being pissing me off, but it's still fun. It's still a fun place. But we're going to need you guys to test the old lore content too. Like, oh, but it doesn't give marks. Dudes, you're on test server. It doesn't matter if it gives marks. You go in there and test it for everyone else. Just, it needs to be done. And at the same time, I can't be the only one. I mean, Bizarro might have beaten me enough to the point where I need to carry a rape whistle with me. It was bad. Alright? Bizarro whooped me. He beat me bad. Still got nightmares. But that's one of those flukes as well that we have to report to the devs on which bounties and everything are going a little bit too much, and they'll take a look at it. Yes, will we basically tell them to look at everything? Most likely. But, they'll look at discretion. Alright, I mean, they'll see what's going on, and at the same time, if you have video footage, if you got screenshots, send them. Post them on the forums. Put them on your YouTube channel, and send them. If you want to put them unlisted, so only the devs look at them, and if you want, you can either put it as unlisted or really just public, either way. I'm putting a lot of my videos on public, of course, from test, but that's also because I want people to look at the fights, and if they see something that's wrong, you guys can make a comment, and I'll double look at the footage, and it's like, oh look, that's a bug. I'll get that reported. Thank you for finding that. That's what we do. We have to help each other here. So, thank you all so much. I have a microphone, and I have the power of YouTube, because I have the power of the internet. So, yay. So be sure to follow me on Facebook and the Twitter. The links are in the description below. I mean, at This Is Trex is on Twitter. I love my Twitter. It's so much fun, so much goodness. And be sure to share this video on the forums and everything. I don't want to do it because I get called pretentious prick a lot. You guys don't see it, but I know it's there. I know it's there. So share the video. Let everybody know. This is just really a quick update for everybody who doesn't visit the forums, and what you guys need to visit the forums. You guys really need to do. So, if you guys have any comments or any questions or anything, please leave them in the comments below, and I will definitely try to answer them as much as possible. And I'll see you guys in-game, on the forums, and everywhere on the interwebs. You guys take care.